black and whites.
Quite a while. ER and emergency and just all of them.
What? I don't have a pen. I got a pencil. Oh, here's a pen.
But it's
Because when I
expensive.
get home,
Are you okay? I got a pencil.
What you do is, hey Dan, you see you're getting your
I
pool
do.
house done.
And that's what I do.
What's
You're
that?
building your pool house out there. I'm waiting for the pool
Yeah.
to go in.
You like that?
But if you can imagine when we were growing up,
Like 2 hours.
and
first TV
three
show.
channels,
Okay.
black and white. With
I've been watching your construction.
If someone would have told your
You're
parents,
gonna have a spurt of
Yeah.
activity.
your dad, that
Yeah.
you were going to pay
Tomorrow will be the last night.
I know. That's why
Are you
I'm
kidding?
pulling him
You
in.
know, in his later last
Yeah, I've
years
got
of his life,
a comp plan,
the computer and the TV were
2014.
my brother taught me to use the computer.
Okay.
We're going to bring the Planning Commission to a call to order for this regular meeting, April 24th for the record. And we'll start out with a roll call.
Thank you. DeVoe.
Here.
Watson.
Here.
Mattingly. Mella.
Here.
Probst.
Here.
Rollinger.
Present.
Schrader. Stannard. And Vogel. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do have a quorum this evening with 6 members present.
If you would join us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is the approval of our minutes of our meeting of April 10th. Mr. Rollinger.
They look fine, thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, a second for the approval of the minutes. Everybody want to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Tom is our historian. He makes sure that we're on track. Let me read in our request for a public hearing. There's one change on it. Your copy may show that it's quasi judicial. It is not. It's administrative, which means you could have talked to somebody about it, and we could have too. The difference between the two. But anyhow, case number VAC 14-002, vacation of a portion of Aspen Street, a request for the city's review and approval to vacate the portion of Aspen Street between Lot 12 of Block 9 and Lot 4 of Block 16, Greens additions to Manitou Park, now Woodland Park, Teller County, Colorado. Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks again for coming, Planning Commission, to provide your valuable feedback for City Council and recommendation. Tonight's case is a vacation of right-of-way for Aspen Street, and our applicants are Mr. Peter Popescu of 308 Aspen Street, which is to the west of the portion of Aspen Street that's being proposed to be vacated, and also Mr. Steve Kopp, property owner of vacant land, Lot 4 and 5 of Greens Addition, to the east of this section. And the section that we're talking about vacating, that's being requested to vacate, is between the alley that divides Lake Avenue and South Avenue, which actually, from an aerial shot, is right through this area here, and South Avenue. So it's this section of Aspen Street right-of-way right here. And Mr. Popescu was unable to attend this evening, but Mr. Kopp is here, so if you have any questions for him that I don't answer following the presentation, feel free to ask those of him. The property owner is out of state. Mr. Popescu is out of state, so he couldn't make it to this meeting. So the section that we're talking about vacating is from South Avenue to the alley, and the request is being made by Mr. Popescu as applicant number 1, in that he uses this as his sole access, ingress and egress and driveway to his property. which is this house right here at 308 Aspen Street. And it is just perceived by him and his wife that since they are the sole people to use this access, that they are responsible of sorts for the maintenance of it, yet it's public right-of-way, even though it's being utilized by them for access. And then for the second applicant, Mr. Copps, just wanting to clean up that remaining portion of Aspen Street right-of-way so that he can potentially in the future either sell his vacant land or develop it in the future, having a little bit more area to work with. This portion, as you can tell from this aerial map, I want to point out that this portion to the north was previously vacated. This was also Aspen Street right-of-way and was vacated in 1994. It was recorded in May of 1994. And another thing that I want to point out from this aerial shot is you can tell as evidence through here with the ground showing through that it kind of stops up this way, so you can tell of sorts that sort of substantiates the travel that's done through this road and where it ends and begins. And also to show you the private access agreement for lots 1, 2, and 3 that was also platted as part of 1994's vacation of right-of-way for the northern portion of Aspen. This is through Lot 11 and is a private access easement is what it is to those 3 lots. This is the exhibit that depicts this public street right-of-way vacation, again showing you that the previous Aspen Street portion to the north was vacated and recorded as a vacation in May 24 of 1994. Also showing you the portion that is being proposed to be vacated. This would be divided in half in accordance with state statutes when there's a straight line of public right-of-way that's being considered, then that is equally divided between the 2 abutting property owners. In this case, that would be Lot 12 of Block 9, Mr. Popescu, and Lot 4, Mr. Kopp. And those are being divided into parcels A and B. These are some existing condition pictures, and this is the view from the north to the south. This is a view from the alley, approximately standing where the alley is, to the South Avenue, and the red line here is really just to indicate the approximate location, not exact. And then from Lake Avenue to South Avenue, another visual of where that Aspen Street right-of-way lies. And the vacated portion, of course, being through here in 1994. And then these are the existing conditions looking to the north from South Avenue to Lake Avenue. This is a depiction of that, as well as from the alley to Lake Avenue. The reason, again, for public review is that as part of Section 12.08, vacation of public rights of way, this is something that has to be taken to City Council through Planning Commission as a recommendation. It's part of the process of vacating a public street right of way. And again, I've covered pretty well that portion that's being proposed to be vacated and the rationale by our applicants. There are 6 criteria that are laid out in Section 12.08 that we are to analyze a vacation of right-of-way to. The first one here is existing utilities. Are there existing utilities located in the right-of-way? And the first thing that we did in this particular instance was to look both at the previously vacated area as well as the new area. And this particular request was sent out for an agency review, which included all of the area local public utilities that would have easements or would have utilities through this area to ensure that those were maintained. And one of the comments that was received We did find out that there were not any current service providers through the previously northern vacated portion of Aspen Street. However, it was reserved that the 30 feet, 15 off of the center line to the east and the west, was reserved as a utility and pedestrian easement just for future. When we looked at this, do not feel that that pedestrian portion of that easement is particularly necessary. There isn't a social trail, as you can tell from the aerial that I showed earlier, that would justify a pedestrian easement through the new portion here. So upon the recommendation of the utilities director, saving this area, reserving it for utilities easement, that's what we've proposed. And the applicants are agreeable to. We've also conditioned that, and I'll go over that at the end. Also, IREA did look at this, and they did identify that they have existing overhead electric facilities that are parallel along the northern edge of South Avenue here, asking to reserve 10 feet of public utility easement for that purpose, along with this vacation of right-of-way, and that has been agreeable with the applicants as well and will be added as a condition. And this is just a depiction of what those easements will look like with the final version. That is a condition prior to final recording of this exhibit. Criteria number 2 talks about maintaining emergency services access through this area, ensuring that that still takes place. And there are 5 rights of way through this area that we've identified. The lots to the south will still, to the south of this Aspen Street right of way, will still have access through South Avenue. And lots to the east, which is only one that comes off of Boundary Street to the northeast, and then to the northwest they have that private easement. And this is a depiction of that private easement that's shown on the fold-out that you should have received as part of your packets. I do want to just let you know that there was a mislabeling of the attachments there. So I believe attachment B was supposed to be C and vice versa, so I apologize for that in advance. But either way, it's the plat of 1994 that shows all the easements that came about with the vacation of the northern portion of Aspen Street right-of-way that shows this a little clearer for you. And that is to depict the private access easement for lots 1, 2, and 3 to the north off of Lake Avenue. And then also to the north, there is one remaining lot that doesn't have topography challenges, that does have access off of Lake Avenue. And then, of course, we also have an unimproved alley, though not improved, it's still an access, emergency access could utilize. And I've labeled these on this this snapshot here of that aerial. Criteria number 3 talks about the feasibility of road construction. And agency did review, agency being city staff as well as fire department and also environmental health, several Teller County agencies. Also, public utilities all reviewed this, and again, none of them all are in consensus that this right-of-way is not necessary. There are no plans to improve this right-of-way, and it is a very small portion of about 8,500 square feet of right-of-way that's remaining, and it's adjacent to a previously vacated portion of Aspen Street as well. So we do not feel that road construction will be impaired for either this section or any of the accesses that come into the properties, surrounding properties that will remain. Criteria number 4 talks about access to the lots that are abutting the vacation. And I've kind of gone over these a little bit. This criteria is a little bit redundant to the emergency services one, but the basics here is that Mr. Kopp's vacant property here, lot 4 and 5, you can even see a little bit of area that's coming the vegetation is being trampled down. You can see the ground underneath it, and that's the area that's being utilized. And probably once it's developed, that would be the access off of South Avenue. That is also the access that the others off of surrounding this area are using. And we have Miss Ferguson at 316 South Avenue. Again, she has that private access agreement that cuts through Lot 11, as do the other properties, lots 1, 2, and 3. And we also have Mr. Randy Coburn's property at 380 Boundary Street, who has a rather large parking lot for his commercial development and use here off of Boundary Road. And then again, we have the access that cuts down the middle, the unimproved alley. Criteria number 5 talks about the area traffic patterns, and we feel that the traffic operates quite sufficiently without this. Again, going back to that aerial and the exposure, the visual of that use right next to Mr. Popescu's property and how it ends pretty much at the end of his property. It's not cutting through in any other way. Traffic was reviewed also by our city engineer, Mr. Bill Osbach, and also by the police chief, and there were no traffic issues that were documented to us as problems coming back related to this section that would be vacated or this area. And again, it's a very small area tying into a previously vacated area of street right-of-way. The last criteria is that adjacent landowners' input, considering that. And I see that we have several neighbors here tonight that'll give you some feedback as well. We did follow appropriate public notification procedures. We did send out, in addition to that, the property notification letters within 150 feet. And we did receive feedback from 2 property owners who were really just more interested in the nature of the request, wanting some more details. And that's the feedback that we've had so far. So we'll get some more from the people that are here. And so staff is recommending approval. And the reason that the first condition here is in red font is because I have reworded it just to better clarify it. It was a little bit cumbersome, but the content does remain the same. But if you were to approve, I would want you to approve in accordance with the conditions presented tonight. I'll read these verbatim so that I don't lose content. The conditions are, number 1, consistent to the public utility pedestrian easement shown in the easement dedication plat of 1994, 15 feet to either side of the center line, equating to a 30-foot public utility easement, shall be added to the exhibit prior to final recording. And number 2, also there shall be a 10-foot public utility easement parallel to the northern boundary of South Avenue right-of-way added to the exhibit prior to final recording. Are there any questions?
I do.
Absolutely.
If you could, on there, you're saying lots 4 and 5. Where exactly are they on that map?
Lots 4 and 5.
Uh-huh.
That's the approximation of it, yes. And so to the east, and Mr. Steve Copps owns both of those lots.
Well, if he made the decision to build on each one of those lots, how would they have access?
The access, as you can see in the ground through here, just as undeveloped, has been off of South Avenue and would continue to be off of South Avenue.
He has 100 feet of frontage along those 2 lots. They're both 50 feet wide, so there's plenty of opportunity there for driveways.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Could you go back to the map? I believe it was criteria 4, please.
Okay. Yes.
There we go. Upper right-hand corner, was that lot 3? What's the commercial?
That's just actually, let me clarify, that's
Is
a
it-
number that pars up to the number 3 over here.
Oh.
forget what lot number that is in particular, but yes, that's the property owned by Mr. Randy Coburn.
And what's its current usage?
It's a commercial private investigation property is what it's used for.
It has been vacant for a number of years. Prior to that, it was a daycare. It was originally built in the
Oh, that's the
early
old daycare.
early 80s
Yeah, this
as a daycare center.
No, I remember. Okay.
Or 70s, late 70s. They have applied for a building permit to do their remodel and a change in occupancy.
Thank you.
Any other questions of me at this point? Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back to that main aerial so that if they want to point out to where they live, they can.
It's Ron and Lori's building.
Do we have anybody signed up? Director out.
No.
What we'll do now is we'll open the public comment, and I'll go through the names of the list on the people that have signed up. And when you come up to the podium, if you just tell us where you live and your name, and we'll start with Judy Ankeny. Right there.
My only question involves the easement off of South.
Identify
I
who
think
you
that-
are.
I think it's
Judy, so we get it in the tape on the record, you got to
Okay.
pull that mic down just so we have a record of
on the easement from South.
it.
No.
Your name and your
Oh.
address.
Judy Ankeny, 317 North Boundary.
Thanks.
And my question is the easement on South. I think it's typical in that neighborhood for it to be 25 feet from a street. And so they're requesting that be changed to 10 as well. Is that what I understood? Usually I think it's 25 feet from a road to where a property can be built.
During the agency review of this particular request, that was what IREA had requested be designated for public utility easement for those utilities, those existing utilities.
Okay.
And Ms. Anthony, I believe what you're thinking of is a setback.
Okay, yes.
Setbacks are required to be 25 feet.
So that still would be in place?
Yes, it
Okay.
would.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Robert said Judy said it all. Okay. Steve Kopp, did I say that right? Cap or Kopp? I can't read it.
It's COP, C-O-P-P.
Sounds good.
For the record, they have an S on the end of my name.
Okay.
So it's Steve Kopp, C-O-P-P, 740 Westwood Trace, Woodland Park. I own lots 4 and 5. So I think the Planning Commission did an excellent job of presenting the case. I don't have a whole lot to gain with a 30-foot easement up the middle of it, basically 15 feet. But I do have a concern after review here, a pedestrian easement that would actually cross my property would allow pedestrians on my property, which would be a real liability issue, I believe.
That pedestrian easement is actually just going to be in the northern vacated portion, which was previously vacated, so from Lake Avenue to the alley. So we're recommending that it just be a public utility easement, not pedestrian easement.
Okay, I'm fine with public utility easement, just the pedestrian easement was a concern. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Darlene Hoonan?
Darlene Hunera.
Well, I
Hi.
slaughtered that one, but I can't read.
That's okay. I'm Darlene Hunera, 214 East Lake Avenue, Woodland
Okay.
Park. And I do have a question about the property, the existing property here in this slide that is to the left of the Aspen Street
You
easement.
might want to, can you point it out
that
on the
we're
map? which
discussing
one?
this home right here. I'm just wondering if they would have any other access to their property as opposed to using what they are right now. I'm sorry, I don't have all the right terminology. But the current easement that they're using to access their home as a driveway, they don't have any other alternative?
That's a street currently that they're using.
That is a street.
That's what we're vacating.
They have 50 feet of frontage to their lot
Correct.
right now, so they could use any of that frontage to establish a driveway. They have chosen, however, to utilize the Aspen Street right-of-way as their driveway. So now they're coming back asking that it be vacated. They do have other options, but it's more convenient to put it further to the east.
And so, sorry about my ignorance, but are they looking at purchasing that property then? Or they already own that
Yes, they
property?
do. Yes, they already own it.
So they're just wanting access?
They own the lot that that home is on.
Right, but not the
Letting-
easement, not Aspen Street.
Not the road right-of-way. And just to clarify, the state statutes does not allow the city to sell right-of-way. And the purpose of that is that back in 1888, is that when the plat was recorded, Green's edition, Dennis Green dedicated all these rights-of-ways to the city, to the town at that time. So the city cannot make money off of property that they did not purchase. They can only vacate that land, and it goes half and half to either side.
And the individual that's utilizing it now would be responsible for maintaining that
Correct.
Yes.
And pay taxes on it?
Yes.
and pay taxes on it?
Yes.
May I ask one last question about the unimproved alley that would be north of that property? I'm wondering if there would be potentially any future plans for Woodland Park to build any roads or access through there.
It wouldn't necessarily be Woodland Park that would build the alley. However, say for example, Mr. Kopp, he builds on his lots and he would like to put garages in the back of those homes or apartments or an office. This is zoned neighborhood commercial, so it could have an office, a small office. And if he was interested as a result of his development to utilize the alley, then he would be required to build it according to city standards. It is, though, highly unlikely that the city, using tax dollars, would ever develop the alley.
Okay, thank you.
Connie Starr? Okay. David, I can't read your last name. Sounds good to me. Come on up.
Is it my turn to sound? My name is David Bauman. I live at 400 East Lake Avenue, across the street from what used to be the daycare center. And my first concern would be, would they ever access that property through the easement? I'd have to show you what this looks like. Off of Lake Avenue, would they ever access this property? Because the easement goes up to Lake Avenue.
That is reserved as a utility or pedestrian easement. It is not reserved as an access or a vehicular easement.
So it could never be used as like
No.
to turn in to that property. And that's also the area that now we can't have pedestrian traffic through there. That's strictly an easement now, or what?
The northern section of Aspen Street that was vacated from the alley up to Lake Avenue has a pedestrian access easement as part of that. It's both pedestrian and public utility easement, but we're not recommending that it continue to be a pedestrian easement because clearly there's not a social trail that would show us that that would be necessary for continuing that.
Is it possible to know what kind of construction that is going up as far as elevation? You guys have a height restriction, right?
Yes, we do.
37 feet or something?
In neighborhood commercial, it's
35.
35.
So is it possible to find out whether they're going to build up or what?
There's no definitive plans for development that are in place at this point in time. So that would be impossible to tell you right now. Yeah.
So they don't really have a use for the vacant property at the moment?
I think probably the more appropriate person to ask that question would be Mr. Kopp, as he's here right now.
Yeah, I'm across the street from Lake.
Could you maybe come? Yeah.
This is called rebuttal from the applicant. We're blending two sections together.
Sorry.
Okay, Steve Kopp again. I don't have any current plans for that property. It's currently for sale. Yeah, both of those lots are currently for sale. As far as owning it in the future, possibly I would look at developing that. Obviously have to stay within the city parameters on height and setbacks. Right now there's a lot of commercial property in Woodland Park vacant, so it'd have to be a specialized kind of property to go in there. Maybe even future development as far as low-income housing or something. So, but we'd have to rezone for that. Okay.
Thank you. Mrs. Baumann? You were signed up next. Patricia, I believe.
Patricia, yes.
Got that one right, okay.
I'm concerned about the building itself that's across from us where we live. I heard them talking one day, okay?
Show us where you're talking about on the map.
The building that is that the people who are going to use it as a security.
Could you show us on the map?
It's the daycare.
It's the other slide.
It's the old daycare.
Oh, you're talking about the old daycare,
Yeah.
to the northeast.
There, I heard them talking about building up. That would take away the view from our place, and it wouldn't be a very attractive situation. Okay, I am concerned about you bringing in low-cost housing because I came there from Evergreen, and we'd have probably a hard time ever selling our property if we decided to move, because if you put low-cost housing in that land, that means people will move out by the droves and sell their house. That's my main concern. And there's enough low-cost housing in Woodland Park already. There's one going up down by Safeway. They're talking about building low-cost housing out by Divide. So, that's all right, but when they're straight across the street from you, that devalues your property. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
And I heard them talking about building up on top of that building. Okay? And that does bother me, because they're going to take away the view from us. Okay?
That'll be another time and date when we talk about that.
Well.
That's not germane to what it is, but we appreciate your comments.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Sure, come on back up. We can't hear you from back there. Restate your name.
Judy Ankeny.
Okay.
My question would be, what is the current zoning? It's zoned commercial residential. What are the guidelines for that current zoning for that area? What's allowed there? We know now it's 35 feet up, 25 feet setback. Could you give us some other things on what's allowed there?
This area is zoned neighborhood commercial and 35 feet high. In neighborhood commercial, 25.
Does it allow for multifamily?
25 8-foot front setback and rear setback, and 8 side setbacks, 8-foot side setbacks.
And does neighborhood commercial allow for multifamily? Or that's a special improvement?
If that were to take place, it would need to be rezoned.
Either rezoned or a conditional use permit.
Depends on
is
what type.
Allowed for residential use in the neighborhood commercial zone.
And a conditional use, we'd be back here again.
It's a public process then.
Okay.
Yep, be another public hearing. You should have an opportunity to come back. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak that may not have signed up? And now's the time, okay? If not, we'll close the public comment and consider that he already had his rebuttal time from the applicant. Okay? So, Planning Commission, any final questions for anybody?
I have a question. Did the city maintain this area previously? At all?
No, it's unimproved right-of-way, so it's not maintained by the city.
I have no questions, but I would make a motion to approve based on the additional condition that we were given tonight.
The one being that there will be not a pedestrian
Right.
right away, but the southern half will be a utility easement only.
Yes.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? We will call for the question.
Thank you. DeVoe?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Mella?
Yes.
Probst?
Yes.
Rollinger?
Aye.
And Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. And this case will move forward to the city council's docket. They'll have a first reading next Thursday on the 1st, May 1st. And then public hearing will be set for May 15th. So if the neighbors would like to come back and make your comments and questions at that time, you're welcome to do that as well on May 15th.
We'll have an opportunity to do the same thing you've done this evening. The first reading is nothing more than a first reading. There's no public hearing. It's just getting it into the process. The second one is the one to be at where the council will open up a public hearing, just like we have here. And you'll need to sign up when you come in, just like we did here.
So May 15th, the meetings are always at 7.
Yes. Yes.
Council's first and third Thursday, or second and fourth.
And then I just encourage the neighbors, if you ever have any questions, Lisa or I are always available at City Hall as well.
Thank you all. We appreciate that. That's what the process is all about. It's when you got to get up and tell us what your concerns are, and take that to heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We shall move on to reports. I don't have one. Commissioners? Anything that you'd like to talk about?
No.
Any gossip you've heard you want to share? No?
Nothing that's appropriate for this.
Okay. Planning Director's report.
Just two brief things. I would like to know who is interested in attending the CML conference, and we can talk about that after the meeting, because we'll need to get your reservations in this next month as soon as possible. And then lastly, we do have a meeting on May 8th. So we have a small legislative issue that we're bringing forward to you, which is modifying the conditional use process for residential uses in commercial zones if they are just single-family or two-family units. That's all.
Motion for adjournment and proceed to the workshop.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. 3-minute break. 3-minute break. Then we'll adjourn on the table. Thanks again, folks.
Thank you.